Hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and we're on volume 27 of Yona of the Dawn. Man, last volume, it was pretty great, right? Last volume, Hak confessed his love. Yona was a badass. The Dragon Warriors got safe. For now, Shiuk sent somebody to investigate, which is up to no good. But yeah, and so everything seemed like kind of quiet down with Xing. Tao and Corin managed to talk with Soo-Won. Yona and Hak have their business now, and Yona has to sort out the fact that Hak just confessed that he loved her, and the dragons all have to deal with that too. And so the cover is of Hak and Jae-ha, which makes perfect sense because Jae-ha last volume was playing matchmaker, pretty much trying to like talk Yona through her boy problems, and luckily the misunderstanding that volume 26 started was nixed, and now Yona and Hak are going to have to talk things out. And meanwhile, Mizari and Naguro died. There was actual character death, and things have just been crazy. So the whole Xing arc, I loved the Xing arc. It was really, really good. I didn't know what to expect at first with it because you had Algira and Voldo being introduced, and I was like, what is this? Like Hot Kitty and everything. But I ended up loving Algira and Voldo's characters. And I ended up really liking the parallels between like Il and Yuhan and Tao and Corin. And then seeing Yona like come into her own, take charge, throw the hairpin away, and just tell Soo-Won what's up. Yona had a really, really good experience, I think, in this arc altogether, like growth-wise. Just her being so resilient. And so now she's our powerful princess, but how's she gonna handle Hak and his confession, right? So last volume was just chef's kiss, and so I'm really excited. But my contacts bothered me again today, and so I had to take them out like 10 minutes ago. I was like, I tried to read the screen and they were blurry, and I was like, I can't do that. I'm not gonna strain my eyes. So I'm sorry I have to take my contacts out. The glare on these glasses bugs me, but I want to be able to read. So with that being said, we are gonna do that. But I'm really excited. I don't know. We're starting a new arc, right? We're starting a new arc, or maybe this volume will just be about Hak and Yona sorting things out. I don't know. So we'll see, right? But I'm excited to see what happens with our crew. So let's not waste any more time, shall we? We are going to start Yona of the Dawn, volume 27 of the manga. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Well, this was an interesting volume. Wow. So we didn't really completely start a new arc. We kind of get like a little bit of setup that there's this old Kuobo or whatever his name is, Xing. He's kind of there's chaos at Northern Kai, and so this warlord is possibly moving in and starting to lay claim. So we did have a little bit of a setup for the arc to come, but this volume was definitely like a aftermath setup volume to set up, but there's lots of things going on in it. Lots of things. So I want to talk about that with y'all. This volume was definitely all about Hak and him trying to reconcile Hak. Oh my gosh. So of course, Kusanagi is not just going to give us romantic lovey-dovey stuff right off the bat. No. I do love that we see, even from a young age, and we'll talk about the special chapters at the end, Hak watching over Yona even from the beginning, which is great. And then her waking up and being like, oh my gosh. So yeah, so I like that Jae-ha tries to be like a matchmaker in all of this, and Hak has a great sleep. He's like, I finally got that off, all that off my chest after like 10 years of pining. Having a great time. There are actually lots of author's notes in this volume, and I kept wanting to stop and read them because I was like, man, it seems like more than usual. But, of course, like I said in the last reaction, I'm like, there's going to be after volume 26. I'm sure people are going to be like, oh my god. So, yeah, we got our first one here. Thank you very much for picking up Yona of the Dawn, volume 27. After volume 26, a lot of people sent me comments. Many readers congratulated Hak over chapter 152, but all he really did was confess his feelings out of frustration. Is that something to be congratulated for? Other than that, I'm glad some people correctly interpreted Kija and Jae-ha's expressions. In chapter 151, I had fun drawing Hak having frank, comfortable conversations with his childhood friends from Fuga. He has female friends. He jokes around and he laughs out loud. I want him to continue being someone who cherishes all sorts of things. That's really interesting because, yeah, In this volume, Kusanagi's like, yeah, y'all, we're still in a slow burn. like just because he confessed, I like that Kusanagi says, you know, he was frustrated and just let it all out and was relieved from it. But is that really the confession that Yona deserves? I mean, I love it, but I like that Kusanagi's like, we can do better with Hak and Yona, but we're just not there yet, right? And so Hak is like, I like that it's not really too awkward between them. I mean, Yona doesn't know what to do with all these, with the confession, and Jae-ha is like trying to be the middleman and kind of being there to sort of ease everything between them. And Sheena's making these arrows. Of course Sheena would be good at making arrows. Of course he would be. Of course he would have the skills and the precision with his eyes to watch and make sure everything looked perfect for the arrowhead. Of course he would. But I do like that Hak, he still tries to be normal around Yona, like he has been this whole time. And Yona's so flustered. She's like, I don't know what to do with this confession. And so I have mixed feelings about this scene because I'm like, I trust Kusanagi. I trust that she's setting things up for them to be expanded on later. It's just so frustrating, right? Because Hak keeps, you know, he's trying to make things as normal as possible and keep teasing her like he has been before. Like he doesn't want things to be different just because he's told his feelings. And so I love in their training session that Yoon's like, man, they're really getting after it, right? And Jae-ha says that he's happy Hak isn't gloomy anymore. And I'm like, I agree. I prefer Hak being, you know, like he is now than being gloomy and thinking about Soo-Won, right? And so I love this, like, their flirting is, they flirt, you know, Hak is not afraid to be kind of like dangerous with his flirting. Because he's like, what's your matter, your highness? He's like, come at me, come on. Hak wants a girl that can, Hak very much takes a page out of the Spike Siegel book and he's like, I want a woman that can kick my ass. Like, that's Hak's philosophy. I totally believe it. And Yona's just like, he's like acting like nothing happened. And so then he's like, come on, you've gotten weak. And I love that she puts the sword to his neck. And he's like, there's my cool princess. Oh, I've got to take a look. Hak's like sly dark dragon look. Husbando indeed, y'all. I'm just like, yes, please. I love it. And she's like, really? So he says that like, you're hilariously unsexy. And she's like, we're training. I don't need to be sexy. And he's like, yeah, you don't need to be. No one wants to marry. When he said nobody wanted to marry her, and she's like, did I dream a confession all up? Like, he's being so mean. But then he says, I wouldn't mind marrying you. It's like, uh-huh. And he's like, I'm kidding. Because she gets all blushy. He's like, I couldn't ask my liege to marry me. Now that line there, I was like, oh, come on, Hak. So I think that Hak is still, like Jae-ha said, Hak has been in the unrequited love territory for so long that he doesn't think it's possible that she can love him back. And I'm like, but she does. She just has to vocalize it to you, right? She's kissed him, but he thinks it was a gesture. He believed her. I was like, no, she was lying, you moron. So now the ball's in Yona's court. So now, because Hak is this dense and unrequited, stuck in this unrequited love land, Yona is going to have to come out and say that she loves him and that the kiss was a kiss. She's going to have to say it. I'm like, girl, Hak is smart, but he can be dense sometimes. You're just going to have to be blunt with this poor boy because he is so bound and determined to think that she doesn't love him back. It's like, and he probably thinks that there's no way they can be together because he's like, I was dead serious. And he's like, I love that he just looks at her, like watching her blush, saying, I could watch this forever. Quit being so damn romantic, you dummy. And she's like, how long have you loved me? And he's like, I don't remember when it happened. I don't even know when I became so hopeless. And she's just like, oh my God. She's like, you've liked me this long and and he's like, I don't have any expectations. I just figured that I should get it out in the open. And it was the heat of the moment. I didn't want it to stress you. It's all good. I'm like, come on. That is the one frustrating thing is like Yona clearly is like, this is a big deal. And Hak's like, I needed to say my piece, but I don't want you to get stressed over. So I get why Hak is doing that. He's trying to be like, I don't want you to like, don't overthink this. But I do feel this way about you, but I'm not expecting. The thing is, Hak doesn't expect her to love him back. There's still a part of him that can't accept that she might love him back genuinely. And like we see in the bonus chapters, I think it's been there for quite a while. She just didn't know it, right? We'll talk about that when we get to it. But Yona's just like, I again, I think the ball is going to have to be in Yona's court. Girl is going to have to confess to him that she loves him back and find a way to say it. And I'm just waiting for it now because Kusanagi has such a beautiful way of wording all of this. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to have to be patient and just wait till Kusanagi gives us those moments, right? This volume's such a tease. But yeah, so our cover is of Jae-ha and Hak, and it is not metaphorical. They actually have a conversation with one another. And I like that Jae-ha tries to get to know Hak and Yona's relationship because Jae-ha is our ultimate matchmaker, but he tries to be like, he knows Hak's struggle. And he's like, you know, in the palace, you know, did you ever like her? And he's like, no, especially not back then. He's like, I couldn't just tell her. So Hak is like, I'm a general. I'm a chief of the Wind tribe. He's like, I'm not a prince. I'm not worthy of Yona's love. It's like, yes, you are, Hak. Shut up. You are so worthy of her love. Don't even. And he's like, it's fine. He's like, she's pretty secure. I'm sure she won't be shaken by this. And Jae-ha's like, no, you are quite mistaken, sir. This is like gonna rile everything up. And so he's like, and so Hak says he doesn't understand Her Highness. He thinks that the kiss was a farewell gesture, but nobody else knows about that except for Algir and Voldo. The dragons don't know about the kiss. Oh my god, they don't know. So Jae-ha's like, wait, what? And so Hak's like, maybe I should give her a farewell gesture too. You should, but you should talk about that with her and let her know that you think it's a gesture and not that she meant things by it. Ugh. And so then Jae-ha asks about the story that he couldn't tell Yona. And so he tells him about the hairpin being let go, and Jae-ha's like, oh, okay. And Hak thinking, when Hak said I wanted to ask her if she wanted to get it back, I was like, let the damn hairpin go. Just let the hairpin go. It's gone. Ogi has it. Let him have it. Damn it. Leave that alone. She's moved on. That's the other thing. Hak thinks that it's good that she let it go. And I really like how he says that to her, the hairpin was a memento. But for Hak, he hasn't been able to let go. That's the thing. Yona found courage within herself to remove herself from Soo-Won, to say, okay, I'm going to let Soo-Won go because I have to save these people, and he's forced me to do this. So that's on him, but I'm going to let him go and move forward. Hak has not had anything to represent his love of Soo-Won that he can let go, and he hasn't. He still cares about Soo-Won. And the thing is, Yona still cares about Soo-Won. That's the thing. Neither of them really know how each other feels, but they both care about Soo-Won. That's the thing. She's just like, I, don't love him anymore. It's like, ugh. And so Jae-ha saying when Hak was at the palace, he dedicated himself to serving Yona and to serve Soo-Won for the rest of his life. And he's still serving Yona, but Soo-Won has betrayed him. And that meant everything to Hak, and so Hak's still dealing with it. It's like, damn, Yona is the only one who can save him. Yes, at this point I'm like, no, Yona girl, you need to confess. You need to tell Hak how you feel, and that he can let go of Soo-Won, and that you're there for him. Because that's the thing. Hak has realized that he can be there for Yona, and he's let Yona, now that he knows Yona had let go of Soo-Won, he's like, he can confess his feelings for her. But I'm like, girl, you just need to just do the same thing back to him. Just have that conversation. Kusanagi, can you do this for me? Okay, and that whole cover for chapter 154 with him and the pendant. Yep, of him with the hang. I love the little sketches of Yona too. They're really cute. So Zeno recommends that they go to Kudo so that they can heal up the dragons. He says they just need to be close to Kiryu Palace. They just need to be close. And so, because apparently the Crimson Dragon King's soul is in there, right? And he says when the mausoleum was in danger, even Yuhan couldn't lay a finger on the mausoleum. So that's interesting. So King Il did not want Soo-Won to go near the mausoleum, right? But also Zeno said that Yuhan couldn't touch it. So is there something there? And King Il didn't want Soo-Won to realize it? We'll have to see. There's something fishy going on with that, and I don't want spoilers, but I'm curious about it. Because then, yeah, Yona she goes there and says she feels like warm there because if she's the Crimson Dragon King reincarnated, of course she'd feel like a warmth presence there. It's like the soul of what she was reincarnated from. Of course she would. And also when she tells Zeno that it's the mausoleum represents the Crimson Dragon King wanting the dragons to be safe, that could tie to it too. But that look from King Il, where he like makes Soo-Won stay back. There's something there. There's a reason for it. And I'm like, okay, all right, story. Now I'm curious, especially because Soo-Won goes there eventually. I wonder if, because we've talked about how people in this world, in this story, get corrupted by religion. That's been a big theme of this, that they take the religion too far and they get corrupted by it and they lose themselves. So like the Fire Tribe, they're just so soaked in the dragon's, lore that they are like, they'll do anything for Yona now. And it's kind of dangerous, right? And we've seen from Gobi and the priesthood how they're seeking that divine power had led them to kind of go crazy and do some really bad things. So I feel like King Il was very religious, but I wonder if maybe he was afraid of Soo-Won being affected by the Crimson Dragon King, by the mausoleum. So I think what's interesting is that the one thing that has helped Yona and the four dragons out the most so far in this is that Soo-Won is not religious. That's helped them out the most, is that Soo-Won is kind of removed from it. He's like, I don't get the point of all this. It's just stories. I don't know, whatever. It's not anything special. And that's what's helped out Yona and them the most. So I'm like, did King Il do some telepathy and be like, or is part of the prophecy that Soo-Won needs to not be religious? Was he trying to keep Soo-Won from the mausoleum so he didn't become enamored with it? Part of me thinks that King Il wanted to keep Soo-Won away from the mausoleum, away from it all, so that he wouldn't get religious and that he wouldn't get this attachment to the dragon lores and the Crimson Dragon King, because he wouldn't let Soo-Won read the mythology either. He wanted Soo-Won to be separated from it. And so I'm like, did King Il predict he was going to die and is setting Soo-Won up to like protect the kingdom in ways that he couldn't, and then Yona's going to come in and become queen? Is that what's happening? I don't know. But I feel like King Il knew that Soo-Won didn't need to have that faith in the lore because he needed to be removed from it. I don't know. That's what I think. That King Il is trying to keep him removed from it. Because, big brain move if that were the case. And it's interesting that Yona remembers that he's forbidden from entering. Very curious. But then if he knew Soo-Won was eventually going to kill him, he knew that Soo-Won would probably eventually visit the mausoleum. So there's that. But yeah, Yona's question, why did Father refuse to let him go in? That's going to be the question that I feel like the next several volumes are probably going to work to answer for us. And I'm excited because I like when we got a surprise coming. I'm pretty excited about that. So yeah, I love Yona's little flipping thing when she accidentally like gets the blankets on top of Hak and she helps him. I'm like, man, Kusanagi, once she's revealed Hak's forearm and that chest, I'm like, just give us a little more, Kusanagi. Just pull back that fan service curtain and let us see Hak in full glory, please. Because Hak's got some biceps. Our dude Hak, he is built, y'all. He is a built 19-year-old. He did not skip arm day or pec day at all. I'm here for it. I'm like, oh my God, yes, please. And then do you know what you're doing? He's like, I wish that going near Kudo would heal the dark dragon too. Or she says that. I like that he's become the dark dragon, the unofficial 5th dragon warrior. But he's like, if you touch me so much, I may not stop at holding your hand. Oh, and when I read, I thought it was really cute. And he's like, I may not stop holding your hand. No, he meant I may not stop at holding your hand. Oh, no wonder she blushed so much. He's like, oh, Hak, do you realize what you're saying, dude? You smooth talker. So we go back to Ogi, who is lamenting. Ogi genuinely misses Soo-Won. He's genuinely sad that he doesn't get to see Soo-Won anymore. Poor Ogi. And then Riri, our girl Riri, she's just, we'll talk about her with Soo-Won later, but our girl Riri, she's just, out here trying to help the people get some info. And Ogi still has the hairpin in his hair. And she figures out that it's Yona's. And at first, I was a little afraid, right? Because I thought she was going to try to give the hairpin back to Yona. I'm like, girl, no. Yona gave that up. We've moved past the hairpin. Leave it alone. Let it be. But she ends up she lets Ogi keep it in exchange for information. In exchange for her, or he's holding on to the hairpin until she can get him more information. Right? It's kind of going to be kind of a trade, which is interesting. All right, so we got another mangaka note. Issue 18 of Hanatiyume, which goes on sale August 20th of 2018, comes with a Yona drama CD. It contains chapters 151 to 153, as well as the bonus chapter Take Care Part 3. Some people hoped there'd be a CD covering the Xing arc, but it wasn't possible. It would be much too long and the cast would be too large. With Yona of the Dawn, a bit more than 1 to 3 chapters is the perfect amount, I feel, to put on a CD. Hak's short-tempered confession, Yona's squirming, the dialogue between Yoon and the Dragon Warriors, the cast performed it all so adorably. The issue will be on sale August 20th to September 4th. It might sell out, so make sure to get it to the bookstore quickly. Yeah, I actually went back and I did not listen to chapter 153 because I knew I was going to be watching and reacting to it here in the volume, but I did find that on YouTube, that clip, and I did read up to the end of chapter 152. I did listen to that, and yeah, Hawk's confession by that voice actor. I love the dragons. They're like, there's so many funny moments in the confession. They're like so dramatically. It's like, oh my God, I love it. So Ogi feels like he's never going to see Soo-Won again. That he betrayed Soo-Won's trust, and that by helping Yona, Soo-Won isn't going to come back and see him. And the thing of it is that it's not because Soo-Won is mad. It's because since he helped out Yona, if informants get that information out, it could put Ogi in danger. And so Soo-Won doesn't want to come around because he's like, he severed his relationship to protect me. And then God, Riri's such a damn savage. She's like, or you're not useful to him anymore. And I love that he's like, let me have my dream. It's probably the funniest damn exchange in this whole volume. It's so good. It's so good. But she's like, I'll buy the hairpin from you. But in exchange, she's like, from time to time, I'll tell you how His Majesty's doing. Information has a price, right? So she's like, I don't have any money to buy the hairpin, but I'll give you information about Soo-Won. So if you can't see Soo-Won anymore, I'll at least come and give you information about him as we go. I'm like, okay. And he's like, sure. And so he's like, I'll hold on to this hairpin then for as long as I need to. Okay. And so this part here where she's like, Your Majesty, you've done some cruel things for the sake of our nation, but there are still people who love you so much. Okay. As soon as I read that, I was like, obligatory Attack on Titan season 4 spoiler. But I just have to get it off my chest before we go any further. As soon as she said that, all I could think of in that moment was Eren Yeager. And I was like, oh, that just ties to Eren in season 4 so much, because it's like Eren and Soo-Won suddenly seemed so similar in these chapters, because Soo-Won is doing what he thinks needs to be done to keep his people safe, but it has involved some cruel actions. But like Riri says here, there are still people that love him. So in Eren's case, he does still have people like Mikasa and Armin that love him and want to try to speak to him, but he doesn't think he's worthy of it anymore. He doesn't think there's any reason why they should love him at all. And that's the same thing with Soo-Won. Just the parallels there. So end of Attack on Titan spoilers, but it's so sad because Soo-Won has done all these things to help Koka, but he doesn't believe he's worthy of Yona or Hawk's love. Or Ogi's. He's like, I've done all these bad things. Why would you guys care about me? Which begs the question of why he's doing what he's doing. Obviously to save the nation. And it could be that he's trying to save the country for Yona and Hawk's sake. But there's still so many questions about like that night that Il died. But the one thing for sure is that I do think that Soo-Won's like, I don't deserve love from anybody. It's like, you do, but there's been so much mystery build up with Soo-Won over these last few volumes, and I'm really getting excited for hopefully Kusanagi to explain some of it. Like, I want to see more, and so hopefully Kusanagi gets there for us. But he goes down to the mausoleum. And he's like, oh, you're here. And I liked it going down to there. He's like, the Crimson Dragon King was treated like a god in this nation. She's like, did you come here to pray? And he says, hardly. And so he's like, I was prevented from entering before, so I wondered what it was like. This is all it is. We don't get to see his face in that last shot in front of the mausoleum, but he's just like, this is it? Why? So many questions with Soo-Won and King Il. I have a feeling as we go forward, we're going to find out more information, but I'm so excited, right? So then we can do the whole thing with Taejun. Taejun just trying, and my dog is scratching the carpet under me, so you'll have to excuse him. I don't know why. But I love Taejun. He's so freaking great. And Kusanagi has a lot of fun drawing him. I just feel like Kusanagi loves drawing his expressions. But Taejun is trying to find a way to spin the flares so that he doesn't throw Yona and Hak under the bus. And somehow, I love that he's like, please let there be like a tiny invasion, just enough to make my story plausible. And then lo and behold, they get invaded. And he's like, all right. I love that Kyogo's like, what do you mean by all right? It's like, Taejun is freaking hilarious. I love him so much. So chapter 155, Lies from Truth. Or Truth from Lies. Which, it's funny because it starts out with Taejun, the lie he told about Kai invading becomes a truth. And then it carries forward into when he's talking about his father, Taejun and Kyoga's father, and how he lied about the Dragon Warriors and how Kyoga thought it was all a myth. Might not have been, right? But before we get to that, we cut back to the hot spring. Man, Kusanagi's just like, I'm gonna draw Hawk half naked in all the ways. Hope y'all like it. But I'm gonna put this giant obnoxious bandage on it so you can't fully enjoy it. It's like, damn it, Kusanagi. I love that Sheena went and took his bath before because he was too embarrassed. He didn't want to bathe with all of them. So he did that before so he could go watch. Also, for this being a men's only bath, PQ, you invading Ow? You're not a bot guy. You're a girl squirrel. Why aren't you over there with Yona? So then there's this part where the white dragon says, I'd like to visit the mausoleum of the Crimson Dragon King at least once. And Yoon's like, or Zeno's like, okay, I'm going. I've had enough. That was really sad because the white dragon, like all the dragons kind of carry that base personality trait from their original user. And so when Kija says that he wants to go see the mausoleum, it's been established that the white dragon was one of the most loyal supporters of the original of Kiryu. So Zeno is like seeing his friend embodied in Kija in that moment. And he's like, I'm getting too close. I need to go. I'm getting too close to y'all. I need to leave. It's like, Zeno. It's so sad that he's like that. And then he's like, I'll check on the young lady. And then everybody's just like, he's just going to go in the other bath? Just him? I love that they're like, Zeno's personality is quite advantageous to him. Jae-ha's like, wow, he really just, gets away with it, right? Because he's ancient, right? Okay. But Sheena, he sees the other people coming, right? And I love that he puts on the mask to get ready. The informant. I love Ogi. The humor in this volume is hysterical because Ogi's just like, okay, bye. It's great. It's great. And so Ogi's meeting his informant here, and he sees the Dragon Warriors, and he's like, okay, interesting. So, and Yoon pops in. I like that Yoon just like hops in to speak with the informants. Yoon's like, I don't care. I'm joining this conversation whether you like it or not. But they find out that Kai Empire is invading. And then we cut to Yona. And I didn't notice this before, but she's got the scar on her back. She's got the scar on her back from when old Water Tribe goon, between when that guy like slashed her. She's got that scar. And I love that she grabs the towel like cover herself. And Yoon sits with his back to her. So she talks about the Crimson Dragon King and asks if Zeno remembers him. And it makes sense that Zeno wouldn't. He's been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. He has to call himself by his own name to remember his own name. So it makes sense that even though he keeps the medallion with him kind of to remind him of Hiryu's spirit, I think, but it makes sense he doesn't exactly remember it. It is a distant memory. And so he's like, I don't know whether I've forgotten or whether my experiences have colored what I thought I knew. Ah, I like that. So him saying, being like, I don't know if I've totally forgotten what he was like or if I've been remembering things differently and that's been affecting it. It's like, ooh, okay. But he's like, looking at you makes me think of him. Makes me think of him. He was kind to us and kind to his people. And yeah, he kind of, you see, he kind of looks like Yona there. And you see the old Kijin and Jae-ha and then Sheena and him together. He was soft-spoken and charming. But it could be that the 4 dragons were a burden to him. I keep wondering. So he brings up the idea that he's like, the dragon gods created the dragon warriors because they loved the Crimson Dragon King and wanted to keep him safe. But Kiryu never asked for any of that. So he's like, are we just here because were we a burden to him? Was he just being nice and he didn't really care for us? Did he think that we were too much? And I love that Yona says, Zeno, maybe the reason the Mausoleum can heal the dragon warriors is because he wanted you all to be well. He wanted to protect you from within Hiryu Palace even after he passed away. And Zeno's like, maybe. I love that. I think I'm on board with Yona's theory that he did want to protect. He did love the dragons just as they loved him. I'm pretty adamant about that. Yep. And so they reveal the plan of how Taeyu, they set that all up during Xing with Ogi, how all that happened. And I love that it's Kija that's like, we have to do all we can to help that man. That man helped us when we were in prison and helped prevent a war from Xing. We have to go there and try to do something. I love that because there's been a lot of parallels between Kija and Taejun throughout this entire series. So I love that. I love that we're calling back to it, right? And then Yona's like, let's go. And so then there's this army that's shown up. It's shown up. It's crazy to battle them. And I like that throughout this whole thing, Kyoga has been wanting to make sure he maintains that trust with King Soo-Won. We'll talk about that. So, mangaka, I'm creating a Yona fan book to go on sale when Yona Volume 28 does, sometime in the fall. I'm worried about how much work it takes to make a fan book. I'm so busy with the series and colored bonus material that I haven't started on it. I've gotten some time off, but I've been using it to do coloring work. I want more time to do my storyboards and drawings. At any rate, the Hana to Yume bonus material will likely be some sketches I put a lot of effort into, so pick it up if you want those. See you later. So, yeah, he's like, I can't betray his trust in me. So it's really interesting that you have this concept of the people of Kwoka being loyal to Soo-Won and being loyal to Yona. And I'm like, why do those things have to be mutually exclusive? Right? What I'm afraid of when we get to Riri and Soo-Won, there's something I'm afraid of, but we'll get to it. But I'm like, at the moment, the big dilemma that Shiuk is bringing up is like, well, people are starting to follow Yona and the dragons and believing in them because they have this divine power beside them. You don't have it and you admonish it and say you have the power of the people. How are you going to appear to be someone that is as reliable as they are? And so that's creating a big old dilemma there. And we'll talk about it with Riri here in a little bit. But man, Soo-Won, there's parts in these chapters where the way that Kusanagi draws Soo-Won, he looks so haunted and his eyes and face look so worn out and tired. But it's just like, the way that she draws Taejun is just so, not Soo-Won, Taejun is just crazy, right? Just how haunted he looks. I want to get a picture of that because it's just really, really good. Like, man, I love the way that he's drawn there. Okay, and so then they start getting attacked. I thought I skipped a page. I thought I missed a page, that there was like some page that I missed where they started attacking, but no, they just dive right in. And that's when Yona saves Kyoga and Taejun by firing the arrow. And I love that she's just there. She's got just the arrow in hand ready to go and Hawk's right behind her, right? Chapter 156, no way I'm losing it. And so then, yeah, they all showed up. And the image of all of them standing there ready to go to battle, it looked like a scene from the anime of season 1. It looked like them all ready to go down the hill to face the troops. I was like, oh, how cool. All right. I like it. And so then Taejun, I love that Hak like teases Taejun. He's like, come on, letting yourself get distracted is dangerous. And Ki-Shuk's like, who is that? That's General Hak. And so then, yeah, the Dragon Warriors, they just come out in full force. And everyone there, the Fire Tribe people who believe in the Crimson Dragon King and the 4 Dragon Warriors, they all think that they're, in fact, this divine presence that's come there to save them. It's like, ugh. So we got another manga note. I touched on this in another column, meaning in this space. But in volume 16, when the manga gets compiled into volumes, if I have time, I make fixes to things where I had to rush to make it in time for the magazine. Those who pay close attention to Hanatime magazine may notice details that weren't published there. Even so, I still missed some things. Bandages or injuries might appear or disappear. Hair might get longer or shorter. Even PQ might start getting longer or shorter. Yep. So please overlook these moments and assume it's part of the confusion of battle. So if I drew something weird, I'm sorry. I love it. So it's curious that Kyoga had forgotten about the Dragon Warriors and the legend and just assumed that everything his father was telling him was a lie. But it may not have been. So it's like, what do you do with that information? And so everything gets explained. Ogi has stuck around to monitor and see if the Dragon Warriors are a thing. They are. And he's like, oh crap, they are. So he stuck around for that. And so in the midst of all this, we have Hak. I love the Hak's like, I love that they're like, and they're like, well, you're the bladed white dragon, the green dragon who Thor's source in the sky, and the blindfolded blue dragon from the legend. And he's like, the dark dragon, the shining blade of darkness. He's like, don't make stuff up. Oh my God. But honestly, because they don't really remember Zeno, because Zeno is the reject dragon, right? I love the Hak has just become an honorary dragon, and that even the dragons acknowledge that he may be their one weakness. So, interestingly, again, if we're saying that Hak is the sword, I don't know if that's the case. So, I wonder if with Iksu said that the sword and the shield have yet to be awakened, I wonder if Hak confessing his love awakened the sword, or I don't know. At this point, I've kind of given up on the sword and the shield for now. But Kyoga knows who Hak is, and he threatens to take Yona and them into custody and take them to Soo-Won and take them back to Palace. And Hawk's like, yeah, if you touch her, I'm going to cut your head off. And I'm like, no. And so Taejun tries to explain himself, but Kyoga just views everything that Taejun's done up to this point as, at first, a betrayal. He's like, you've been in contact with them this whole time and you never told me. That is a betrayal. He's like, our father, everything. He's like, I've chosen to devote my life to this tribe and to serve King Soo-Won. You betrayed that trust. And so I like that Taejun, though, sticks up for himself. And he's like, look, I won't permit any harm to come from her. He's like, I'm not sorry for what I did. And so he's like, you can't hurt her. And I like that Yona does not sit up on the mountain and let this go down. She's like, I need to come down there and talk to y'all. Again, because our girl is a friggin' boss queen. And she's like, I'm not going to just stand up here and let you guys argue about me. I'm going to get over here and explain what's going on. And so I like that Kyoga notices how different she is. She's not the carefree little princess with her trinkets. Girl's been through some shit. She's grown. And she comes down there and is like, no, we are not going to the palace. Soo-Won knows I'm alive. Stop. And so that's interesting. And then all the soldiers recognize her and they know her as the one from the legends. But Kyoga keeps being like, everything my father said was a fantasy. But the troops say, wouldn't laying a hand on them be tantamount to blasphemy against the gods? And Yoon's like, something incredible is happening. We've been treated as monsters, what gives? And Zeno's like, well, these people think that we're all gods. They're not quite the same as the rest of the country. And so this is the interesting thing. And Ogi kind of points it out as well, being like, yeah, Coco was founded by the Crimson Dragon King, so people view him as a god and of his dragons as divine servants. So Soo-Won doesn't possess any of that, nor does he want it. So if people start believing in her and backing her more than Soo-Won, and Yona decides to take the palace, then it could cause a giant civil war. And so that might be a problem. But the thing is, Yona doesn't want to go to the palace. She doesn't want to do any of that. So it's just they're thinking of dilemmas that don't necessarily exist, but are potential, right? And so we cut to chapter 157, where they all go down there to the soldiers, and they're like, Yoon's like, we can argue later. There's people that need to be treated. Can we handle them first? Can we do that first, please? And so they all just start picking up the wounded and going and trying to heal them off the battlefield. In chapter 1, I got another manga note. In chapter 153, Hak said, I stopped wanting her to see me that way or imagining us being together. But I think the window of time when he wanted her to see him that way was pretty brief. It wasn't just that he didn't want to get between Soo-Won and Yona. The fact that he was so far removed from the royal family was a bigger factor. He'd already refused the position of general, so his feelings never took precedence. It wasn't that being a general would have made him a poor match for a princess, but it would have been very uncharacteristic for him to interfere with her unrequited love. And then, once he finally did become the Wind Tribe's general, what mattered most was him serving Soo-Won, Yona, and Il. Ah, okay. So Hak becoming general meant that he let go of his own personal desires and was like, nope, I'm the general now. I'm the Wind Tribe's chief. I'm going to serve Soo-Won, Yona, and King Il. It's like, Hak, it's okay to want things for yourself, sir. It's okay to do that, you thunder beast, you dense dark dragon. And so, yeah, then they attend to all the troops. And I like that Taejun doesn't want the soldier to lean on Yona. He's like, no, let me do that. It's fine. And it's like, oh my God. It's great. I'm like, of course. Why should we expect anything less from Taejun? I love it. But yeah, Kyoga just can't understand why. He's like, everything my father told me was a lie. So why is it this is happening? He's like, my people's adoration of the crimson hair and dragon warriors burns deep in their hearts. Will it ever fade? We're sworn to serve another master. And I like that juxtaposition of Yona and Soo-Won back to back. He's like, we're supposed to serve Soo-Won. So the fact that they love her, how's that going to factor in? And we'll talk about this. So Rihazara, he's got like the bandage over his eye. He seems like he's been injured, which is interesting. I wondered if it was from when Soo-Won and they were last time. I don't know. So he says he's going to inform Soo-Won of everything, which he does. So we go to Riri hanging out with Soo-Won, and this conversation, this is a very interesting conversation. So Riri's been hanging out with him, and she's like, do you want me to go? He's like, not particularly. You can stay here. And she's like, why don't you just have Judo with you to be your bodyguard? And he's like, no, it's fine. And so we do get at first I was like, oh, him hugging her, but it's to keep her from getting killed. Like, she questions whether he has bodyguards or not. He does. They're just in the shadows. Which is interesting. That's an interesting comment about his character. Because Yona, her personal bodyguard's with her 24/7. That's Hak, right? But for Soo-Won, he keeps everyone at an arm's length, if you notice. He never gets super close to anyone. And that's interesting. He always keeps everyone at arm's length. And so him even having the bodyguards, he keeps them at a distance, right? And part of that too is that Soo-Won wants to have this appearance of being this really kind, aloof king, but he's got the bodyguards there. So it's like, it's a front, right? Soo-Won's character is littered with shades of facades and personas. And who is the real Soo-Won? That's the question, right? What does the real Soo-Won think? And we've not gotten to see that. We've only seen what he's told people, and we've gotten a bare glimpse of his actual thoughts. So he's a mystery box. I like him. I also like that Riri's like the only one that can be his match. I'm like, part of me still ships him and her a little bit, but after this chapter, I'm like, oh no. So I like he's like, they think we're lovers. And she's like, what? I love this conversation that they have. He's like, yeah, they want you to become my queen. And she's like, why? Just because I'm a girl and my dad's the water tribe chief? And he's like, well, kind of. And so she's like, you haven't actually talked to any women. And she brings it up. She's like, are you gay? She kind of brings it up. She's like, do your interests lie elsewhere? And he doesn't deny it. He goes, the thing is, many people suspect exactly that, which is why they're so pleased that you're here. He doesn't say it's not true. It just says people suspect that. And she's like, they're just relieved you're not betting a man. Ha ha ha. He's like, you're laughing too hard. And then he just ignores the subject. So I'm like, you know, he's like, spending so much time with you means people have stopped pushing the subject of marriage. Your presence is a convenience for me. So she's his beard. Basically, she is his beard in this situation. But the thing about it is that he's trying to tell her, he's like, people in the palace are complicated. You're straightforward and easy to deal with. There's a part of this that I kind of don't like, because it is him coming out and saying to her, very much like Hawk, he's very blunt, but he says, he's like, I'm only keeping you here there's two reasons he's keeping her there. He doesn't tell her one of the reasons. He tells Shiuk that. I'm like, oh, being slithery, Soo-Won, indeed. The one reason he keeps her there, it's not because he particularly likes her. It's because if she's hanging out with him, people will leave him alone about his sexuality and his single status. It's like, okay, that's not really fair to her, because she's like, I'll choose to take this as a compliment, you know? But there is another reason he's keeping her here. And so she's like, nobody's expecting us to get married, are they? And he's like, well, at some point, yeah, they thought that any woman would do. And she's like, wow. He's like, however, I have a good relationship with the water tribe, so there's no benefit for me marrying you. And she's like, wow, gee, thanks. And so she brings up marrying Koka and Tao, Korin and Tao, which she says, man, you know, marrying Korin would strengthen the ties, but I can't imagine that she'd agree to that. And then Riri says, he says that, but he doesn't seem terribly interested. I wonder if he's holding out for someone better. So if that were the case, my instant thought was Yona or Hawk. My instant thought was he's holding out for Hawk, but we'll talk about Yona in a minute. And so marriage isn't all about how it benefits you personally. But then she says, but that aside, he really doesn't seem interested in women. I can see why people were speculating. No, he doesn't. He doesn't spend his time on religion or women. When he engages in diplomacy, he achieves bargains that benefit a nation. He's an ideal king. But yeah, lots of mixed feelings. I'm with Riri. He's an ideal king. He's making good decisions for the kingdom, but he does not care about women or religion. He's just got this one sole focus. And then Shiuk comes back. And he leaves with Soo-Won, leaving Riri there. And so I like that Riri has this moment where she's like, I don't understand why Soo-Won sees power, but I'm Yona's ally. Those things seem incompatible. Soo-Won taking the throne and staying friends with Yona, they're not compatible at all. And so Shiuk does not like the fact that he's spending time with Riri and thinks that her influence is affecting him. But Soo-Won, the other reason he says he kept her by is that it's better to have her here where we can watch her rather than having her speak out elsewhere. So his other excuse to Shiuk is that he's keeping her there to keep her from roaming around the kingdom, which maybe that's a lie, maybe it's not. If it's not a lie, I'm gonna be like, that's kind of gross. But I don't like that you're just keeping her there so she's stuck there, right? Not having it. But then they go there and talk about the Kai forces. So Quelbo, Ying Quelbo, is the warlord, the northern warlord that's come down. And so Shiuk says that this is what Soo-Won was worried about, that North Kai would be in chaos, and in the chaos they decide to go and try to invade Koka. And he's like, this is why it's imperative we turn the nations of Se and Xing into subject states. He's like, we need the armies from She and Xing to make sure that we don't get attacked. And that's when Shiuk reveals the whole thing about Yona and what the thoughts on her and the dragons are. And Soo-Won does his best to ignore it. He's like, they're just stories. But Shiuk's like, no. He's like, in the hearts of the people telling these tales, someone is being hailed as a god of our nation, and it's not you. He's like, you're going to lose influence over these people the more Yona and her happy, hungry bunch start to do all these good deeds and people start to recognize them. They're going to follow her, not you. And so if she decides to come back to Hiryu Palace, you're not going to stay in charge. Or worse, we'll start a civil war, which is the opposite of what he wants. So my fear is that they're going to try to get Yona to go back to the palace and try to get her to marry Soo-Won so that it'll unite the kingdoms, and then everybody will be on Soo-Won's side again. Now, obviously, Yona's not going to go for that at all, and Hak would freak the fudge out because he's just confessed his love. I'm like, I don't like that, but I could see Shiuk being like, well, maybe if we bring Yona back and you like get married to her, then that'll solve our problem. And I'm wondering if when Riri said he's holding out for something better, if she's going to interpret that to mean Yona. But I mean, I think it's Hak. But you know, so that's my fear. I'm like, my fears are going to try to get Yona to come back to the palace. And you could see how they would try to entice her, because if they find out about the dragons, they might be like, or she might think, oh, well, if I'm near the palace, the dragons could stay here next to the mausoleum and stay healed up all the time. But Zeno probably doesn't want to do that, because he probably will see the writing on the wall and be like, no, that's going to lead to us being you. That's the thing. The dragons in the past, under kings that were very religious and believed in all that, used the dragons a lot for their own means. Right now, Soo-Won hasn't had to do that. The dragons have acted rogue. So I don't know if maybe King Il was trying to keep Soo-Won away from all the mythology so that he wouldn't be tempted like other men have been to use the dragons in the past, right? I don't know. I don't like the idea of them trying to set Yona up to marry Soo-Won, especially since he killed King Il, but I could see it happening. But I also want, if that happens, I want Hak to show up and be like, no, Soo-Won, I love her. She can't marry you because I'm going to marry her one day. And it'd be like, oh my God. So I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but that makes me have anxiety. So I'm not going to talk about it anymore. So in any case, we cut back. So we don't have to talk about it anymore. We cut back to them helping the fire tribe people heal. Yona puts her hood up. I like that they say the red hair and she's like, stop looking. I like that. But Hak, well, I mean, Zeno gives it away, but Hak finds her. And I love that shot of him. That shot of him just like exasperated, like, you know, like just staying. And then we have the bonus chapters, which perfectly come after this. By him just sitting next to her by the tree. He's so big compared to her. It's like, oh my God. So we have these bonus chapters. We have the one that's the martial arts tournament that happened 3 years ago. So Yona was 13 and Hak was 16. And I like that Hak has his, pretty much the gear he has on now. He doesn't have quite the arm wraps that he had before, but his uniform has changed. And Hak has decided to become the tribe leader. And here's the thing. This is the thing that's crazy, right? And Hak wasn't there to realize it, but Yona, she wanted to see Hak fight. That's the only reason she wanted to go there, was to see Hak's battle. That was it. She's wanted to be near him this whole time, like even 3 years ago. And Hak just didn't realize it. There's also a very interesting thing with Yuhan here. And again, we don't know Yuhan's, or not Yuhan. My point was, Il's very disturbed by the tournament. He doesn't like it. He says, look, that child is injured. I should set tighter restrictions next year. I feel like Il had to kill Yuhan at some point. He had to kill him and was capable of killing him, and afterwards regretted it. And so he wanted to see less violence, because he's like, I know what people are capable of. And he's like, I know what I'm capable of. When I fight others, he's like, I don't want Yona to be subjected to this. I don't want people to have to do this. Like, you can just tell, right? Like, he was so against the idea of violence at all. And Judo even seems kind of like, And then we see Minsu there, right? So, anyway, we get all the things with Kyoga and Guntae, and poor Taeyu ends up losing to Kyoga. But then, of course, together is Hak and Soo-Won. Of course, right? And apparently, Soo-Won has been to Fuga. So, there's that. There's that little tidbit. Yona's not been there. Yona hadn't been there before, but Soo-Won had. Fun times. hurt my heart a little bit more, why don't you? And so then, yeah, there is this difference. Like, King Il, he despises the idea of the tournament and the matches and hates that Taeyu, he's like, look at that child, they got injured. And Soo-Won goes, good job. What a contrast, right? Like, he doesn't see the whole thing with him being injured as being, like, it was just part of it, right? Which relates to his character a lot, which makes a lot of sense. So then, though, this whole thing with Judo being against Hak is fascinating. And I feel like there's bits and pieces we aren't seeing that I'm like, Judo is terrified of Hak. Thinks he's the biggest threat in the world. But he's been watching, but he watches him from the start. Like, Hak and Soo-Won are just having a conversation together, and Judo looks over to Hak like he's about to do something, and Hak's like, what the hell? So Judo's had an eye on Hak for years, which is interesting. And we'll talk about that here in a second. And then Minsu apparently took Yona to her rooms, or said that she returned to her rooms, because Hak's like, where's Yona? And he forfeits the match to go see Yona. He forfeits the match against Judo to go see Yona. Because when he told her at the beginning of this volume, he didn't know exactly when he became so hopeless. At least 3 years ago. Because he abandoned the tournament to go find her. And just her, she's like, did you win? He's like, no, I bailed. And he offers to take her into town because he's the best husbando in the world. And I love that he like holds her hand in that moment. Oh, but then here's the thing with Judo. Judo, they had abandoned that he was left there on the battlefield after Hak abandoned him. And they're like, well, it's probably good for Judo. He doesn't have to fight Hak. And they're like, General Hak has the king's favor. Rather than appointing Judo of the Sky Tribe as Princess Yona's bodyguard, he went out of his way to get someone from the Wind Tribe. Like, that's Judo being shoved aside to not be her bodyguard, but to be Hak. That's fascinating. Like, Judo's reaction and seeing him, like, fade into the darkness. And then him, like, he, like, storms off and Soo-Won watches him leave. Oh, the intrigue, the setup, like, Soo-Won's a very observant person. So him watching Judo leave and seeing Judo's feelings about Hak, it all kind of, you see how it's been festering for the last several years. Like, just seeing that bubbling, right? It's starting to boil. But yeah, he gets her little red bean, the bean jam bun. And then they decide, and then the Wind Tribe finds out the Hak is not coming back. He's going to stay as her bodyguard. And then he's like, look. And that's when he tells Yona, he's like, Lord Soo-Won is over there. And she's like, oh, he's like, it's all right. You look adorable. The bean jam bun made you look nice and plump. And she smacks him. And then she's like, oh, Soo-Won. And then he tells Soo-Won we should enter next year. And she's like, oh, I don't think His Majesty, I wonder if he will let me or not. But in that moment, it hurts my heart because it's like Hawk's like, go on, Yona, go be with Soo-Won. And it's like, she should be with you, damn it. Like how, Hak, you miserable man. Like, he gave it all up so that the two of them could be happy together. He gave up his own he made his happiness theirs. And it's like, but Hak, you deserve her. And you clearly loved her back then because you stopped a fight in this big tournament just to go see her. It's clear that Soo-Won did not love Yona the same way that you'd love her, but you were going to be happy with just the two of them being together, even if it sacrificed you having a happy ending. Like, you were going to make that your happiness. I'm like, Hak, you just... Ugh. Nope. But then we get the final chapter here. That's Take Care Part 3. So after Hak went berserk, poor Zeno and all of them get separated. And so Zeno, he actually questions for a moment whether or not the dragons that he's sensing now are the ones he's been with. Which is, we get a little bit into Zeno's mindset here, and it's kind of terrifying because he's been around so long. He's like, is this the same set of dragons? Is it different now? Has it changed? This isn't the time period I think it is. There are different blue, white, and green dragon, or maybe the Dragon King doesn't exist. But then he says, maybe I only dreamed about my wish coming true at last. So is his wish for him to be, is his wish for there to be like, for the dragon gods to leave, and for these four to be able, for the four of them just to be able to live their lives out normally, and for the dragon gods and the Crimson Dragon King's powers to leave and to let them all live normal lives? Is that his wish? It's really sad that his memory, he's been around for so long, and he doesn't ever call them by their real names because he doesn't want to associate, oh wait, no, Sheena's dead. The blue dragon before is dead. It's this one now. He doesn't want to do that, which is horrifically sad because he doesn't ever connect fully with the dragons, right? But getting this little like preview into his mindset is just so sad. I'm like, Zeno, dude. And then it's almost like he's like, Zeno can't differentiate between dreams and reality. Yeah, if you've been around for hundreds of years and you can't die and you don't really sleep, eventually you'd probably go crazy. And Zeno's just like, what can I do? But I love that Jae-ha looks like someone he looks like James off of Team Rocket with the rose and everything. And I love that Zeno's like, I'm dreaming, bye. And he's like, no, I'm right here. And I love that he's like, this is reality and it's a worrisome thing. He's like, I love that Zeno suggests that like Jae-ha's into BDSM. And he's like, it was a little fun, but it's not really my thing. I feel like that's such a Jae-ha thing to say. I tried it once, wasn't crazy about it, but no regrets. Getting him out of the brambles, out of the thorns. And then poor Sheena. Sheena's so mad that the little Ao's cheeks were flattened. Ao does look ridiculous like that. And then they all say Zeno can think of one person who the Dragon Warriors are no match for. And it's Suspect H, unemployed. And so then they remember what happened, that Hak went berserk with the lozenges. And all the dragons get thrown away. And so I like that Jae-ha suggests, he's like, Yona, just tell him that you love him. And she's like, why? And he's like, Jae-ha is tormenting himself and joking. And he's like, come on, Yona, if you startle him. And she's like, I don't want to say that in all this confusion. And Jae-ha's like, oh, Jae-ha's like, oh, so you are going to tell him that you love him eventually. And then that's when Hak throws them all away. And that's how they ended up there. So yeah, Yona is considering telling him that she loves him. She just wants to find the right time. Oh my God. Ugh. And then Yona is Hak's weakness. And she's like, I told him that he needed to become, better behaved around y'all. And so then he talks really pledged. I'm like, Kije, would you like me to patch you up? And Kija's like, he never calls me Kije. He always calls me White Dragon. What the heck? Or White Snake. I love it. I love the faces of all of them. They all look so disturbed with Hak's kindness. I love that even Sheena, where he's like, the mask flies back. It's so freaking cute. But yeah. So there is an afterword. It says, the inter-tribe martial arts tournament, just this once. Addendum. I was wondering what to draw for bonus chapter and decided on this story. However, I didn't have enough pages, so it was tricky to put it all together. This story takes place several days after Chapter 3, Hidden Strength. Oh, okay! In that chapter, Grandpa and Hak come to Hiryu Palace for the 5-tribe council. The other tribe chiefs stay at Hiryu Palace for a while. There's some incident involving Taejun. Hak becomes Yona's personal bodyguard as well as a general. Taeyu and the others come to Hiryu Palace for the martial arts tournament. Something like that. The martial arts tournament is held once a year as public entertainment, but Il isn't very enthusiastic about it and frequently makes changes to the rules. An age limit was added and participation became restricted to certain individuals. Taeyu and the others didn't participate in subsequent martial arts tournaments. If Hak hadn't become Yona's personal bodyguard, I think he would have shown up for his match with Judo. Until then, he had distanced himself from the royal family and Yona, but now he'd made up his mind to face them. He thought that staying by Yona's side is what Il would have wanted. When Hak decides to do something, he sticks to it, so he didn't go back to Fuga for 3 years. Overall, it was a fun chapter to draw, but what I liked best was drawing Soo-Jin, Jungji, and a younger Ayura and Tetra. And then Take Care Part 3. As usual, creating storyboards for such unpredictable stories takes a long time. I pretty much wrote it to get Zeno and Sheena to talk. In the drama CD, the cast was able to recreate it perfectly, so I encourage you to listen to it. Side note, I finished the storyboard and final art pages at the same time as chapter 157, so it was quite hectic. Hak and Jae-ha are on the cover. Hak is like an older brother among the members of the Wind Tribe. He'll never admit it, but Hak now sees Jae-ha and Kija as older brothers, around whom he can be a bit vulnerable. Yeah, you can definitely tell Hak is the most connected to Kija and Jae-ha, and the fact that they are like big brothers to him, because they are technically older, is really nice. But yeah, so Hak, I don't know, I feel like he would have won against Judo, even if he'd shown up, but man, oh my god, what a chapter, what a set, right? Holy cow. So, lots of things with lots of mystery with Soo-Won and Ill. We still have lots of things not answered. Hak has confessed, but now Hak still thinks it's unrequited. He's been so used to it all of these years. Yona is just going to have to come out and tell him that she loves him. It will happen eventually. I tell myself. I'm like, you know what? It's been the slow burn for 26 volumes. If Kusanagi just gives us little chunks along the way, I'll be satisfied. I was happy with this volume. This volume's definitely a setup. Like, they're setting something up with Ying, with the Ying Quellbow guy. They're setting stuff up with him. They're setting stuff up for a possible battle with the Kai Empire. They're setting stuff up with Soo-Won and the Dragon War. They're setting stuff up with, like, internal conflict with Soo-Won and Yona and them. What's going to happen with that? Shiuk being all snaky with Soo-Won and Hak. And all the dragons know now, so it's all out in the open. Riri. Lots of things being set up, and I'm really curious to see what we do with them. So, I'm curious. I'm also curious to know your thoughts down below. Please no spoilers, but I'm curious to know what you guys thought of the volume and what's the events of what's happening. So, in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with volume 28 of Yona of the Dawn.